As I said at the beginning of Mass, sometimes it's hard to believe. Sometimes it's scary out there, especially with all of the people being afraid of the pandemic that we're facing now, and all the people that are sick and people locked away behind closed doors, just like the apostles were in the beginning of the church, trembling and fearing that the Sanhedrin would come and take them away. But maybe the most important line from the gospel today is, those who believe will have eternal life. And Jesus goes on to say, I am the bread of life. And he talks about the people in the time of Moses in the desert who ate the manna, the bread from heaven, and were still hungry the next day. They had to have faith that God would give them bread every day, because they only gathered enough to feed them for that one day. And they trusted that the next day the bread would come again. Pope Pius V is probably not a name that's on everybody's lips, but he's not as famous as St. Patrick or St. Anthony, but he was a person of incredible faith. He lived in a time about 500 years ago when the world was a very scary place to live in. Most of you have either lived through or heard about World War II, when the Nazis and Adolf Hitler were trying to take over the whole world and crush the Catholic Church and crush the Jewish church. Well, way before them, back in the 1500s, the Ottoman Empire from Turkey were trying to push through all of Europe and conquer it and crush the Christian faith and put the Muslim faith and the Muslim religion in place instead. They ruled most of the Mediterranean. They were like pirates. They had these great war vessels, these giant ships with people, slaves, rowing the ships, and they were almost never defeated in a battle. And they were poised to take over much of Europe when Pope Pius V rallied the troops. He said, we don't have much, but all of these Christian nations from Spain and Austria and Venice to come together and form a navy to battle against them at a place called Lepanto. And they knew that the odds were overwhelming, but Pope Pius said, we need to intercede to our Blessed Mother. We need to pray the rosary. Everybody in Europe, pray the rosary on this day. And on that day in 1571, the impossible happened. The ragtag little navy crushed this navy of the Ottoman Empire that had never been defeated before, so much to the point that they had casualties of 4-1. For every one person that died on the Christian side, 4 people died on the other side. They lost 40,000 people in that battle. And 12,000 Christian slaves that had been forced to row those boats for the Ottomans were freed. And Europe was saved, all because they believed. Believing is something that we have to learn to do. Sometimes it's hard, and we can learn it from our parents. Today we celebrate this Mass. One of the Mass intentions is for a couple that has been married for 32 years, Don and Karen Frankowitz, and they had a little girl that when she was little, she wanted to be a softball player. She wanted to be the best softball player in town. And they told her, if you work hard and you pray and believe, it'll happen. Not only did she become one of the best softball players in town, but one day she went away to college. She had dreams of becoming a pharmacist, and she got a job part-time for the Pittsburgh Pirates as a ball girl. She would stand on the sidelines. When a foul ball would come, she would catch it. She was so good that one day they hit this foul ball, and it was heading right towards someone's face. It was way over her head, and she dove up in the air backwards and caught it behind her back like that. And everyone was on their feet screaming and clapping their feet or clapping their hands. And they did an ESPN special of the 10 greatest plays of the week. And she was one of those plays. It went wild on the internet. All because she believed that her parents told her that she could do whatever she wanted if she prayed and believed. That's what we have to do during these times of the coronavirus. Pray and believe, especially the rosary, praying that our Blessed Mother would always watch over us, and trusting that somehow, some way, God is at work in our world, and that one day we'll be back in our churches and appreciate our Mass, appreciate the Eucharist, that bread of life that Christ promised, even more than we ever believed in it before. We'll believe and trust that God is truly present in our church, and He always will be. As He promised, His kingdom will never end.